Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hello, you're listening to the podcast, So There I Was. This is episode number 151. Ass over Teakettle in a spin at 18,000 feet.
Ow.
What?
Don't do that.
What?
That is terrifying. Another fellow Harrier driver, though.
Yes.
Been a while since we've had an AV-8 driver with us.
Yes, and he was a real one. I mean, he spent his whole career flying Harriers.
He did. He did indeed. Got out as a light colonel.
He has some stories. Yeah, retired as a lieutenant colonel. Last billet was the XO of the Black Sheep, VMA 214.
That's it.
And boy, oh boy, the opener was that story. The tease.
And terrified us.
Yeah.
Till we settled it. Spoiler alert, he survived because he was on the show with us, but you know.
Not only did he survive, but the airplane was still in one piece.
Yeah. He brought back the airplane. Event.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it wasn't his only close call with death. That was pretty interesting.
No, he had several.
Yeah. Let's take a couple quick seconds to take care of some business. First of all, we need to thank Robbie Walling at HSI Wealth Strategies, because Robbie is here to help you. This is your chance to reach out to him at 214-JET-7030 and figure out how to retire wealthy, not on the public dole. Right? Don't be a moron. Call Robbie.
Don't be a moron. Call Robbie.
Yeah.
And then our giveaway.
Yeah.
So there I was, .us/giveaway.
What are we giving away, though?
Well, we're giving away a custom etched flask with your name or your call sign on it and the So There I Was logo. It's pretty badass, by the way. And what do you got to do to get that?
Well, you just got to go to stereowest.us/giveaway and share the show. All you got to do is tell somebody about it in a text or on X or on Facebook or whatever social media kind of stuff you got. Go and like one of our videos on YouTube, that kind of stuff. There's links at the bottom of that page. Click on those links, earn some points. 5 random winners drawn at the end of the month. So you got a good chance to get some cool show merch.
How could you mess that up?
Right?
It's free.
Good stuff. Yeah.
It's free to share the show.
Exactly. Doesn't cost you anything. In fact, it costs you not to. Now it costs you not to share the show because you don't have a chance at one of these cool flasks. Just saying. So, hey, is it true that Warren threw a big kerfuffle?
He threw a big kerfuffle. He felt sorry for Perth.
Yeah.
He cut through airspace while a giant exercise was going on, trying to limp an airplane back, and the only thing he got was "good luck, little buddy." I mean, there was.
He was in an afterburning Harrier at the time.
Yes, and the girls weren't ugly. I mean, we had so many different options here.
Yeah,
but really holy cow, what a wealth of experience, and what a great storyteller. Really, really quality interview. I can't wait to listen to it again myself.
Right. This is going to be it. In fact, you know what? Let's do that now. Get out of the way here, and here comes Warren.
This here is a true story.
Don't sit on the ejection seat.
About crossing the pond at night in the world's smallest cockpit on the tanker through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that. Thanks a lot. We really appreciated that. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fun.
So there I was, in a spin, passing through 18,000 feet, nose down, with no engine running, and I had to figure something out quickly.
Oh, ow. Wait a minute. That hurts. Oh my, I'm terrified already. Oh, man. Greetings, everybody. Repeat here, coming to you from New Hampshire tonight. This is So There I Was, the podcast where all great aviation tales begin, and that is a great beginning for
Fucking
one.
palms are sweating already.
Yeah, that's terrifying shit there. Where's my cohort?
Hey, I'm lucky enough to be in God's country. That's Kearney, Missouri, and I'm home from my big boy job, and it is our pleasure to welcome Warren. So there I was. Welcome, Warren.
Yeah, thanks, guys, for having me today.
Yeah, glad to have you. So very cool. Well, Harrier guy, now flying for one of the majors. And how'd you get interested in flying airplanes?
That's a great question. I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Go Lobos. I grew up about 3 miles from the airport. And at the time, there was a reserve squadron. I think it was an Air Guard squadron called the Flying Tacos. And they flew F-16s, and they would be over my house every day. So that was one inspiration. The other was my dad. While he wasn't a pilot, he was a forest ranger before he got married up in Alaska, and he got a lot of flying in on float planes. And his passion for aviation really ignited mine, and he fed it like a fire. He would pull me out of school. We'd go to air shows across the country, and he basically it really encouraged me to chase it. And I joined the Marine Corps to piss my mom off because she told me I couldn't be a Marine. And the Marine Corps was nice enough to give me a contract and let me be a pilot. So super excited to be here.
PLC program, right? PLC program?
No, I was Navy ROTC, University of New Mexico.
Okay, there we go.
2000 grad.
And you did the right thing by taking a Marine Corps commission.
Yes, actually, that's a funny story. Again, I actually had no intention of taking that scholarship. My mom's side of the family goes back to the Revolutionary War, Army, and some Navy. And so I was going to join. I was looking at the Army. I was mostly looking at the Air Force because, again, Vipers were over my house all the time. And I didn't know about Pappy, and I thought that was interesting. But I was drawn to being a fighter guy. and so this Sergeant Clover Dunce, he was a recruiter, and he basically said, and I was talking to him one day, and he's like, I don't even think you're Marine Corps material, and walks off. Right? Rule 101, right? Recruiting story, Marine Corps. I was like, what? Are you not talking to like the varsity athlete at Albuquerque High? Like, this is ridiculous. So I actually started chasing him down, and then I was like, you know what? I'll just do the Navy scholarship, but it's a long story. But basically, he coaxed me into doing the PFT. I got the scholarship. I was on the fence, and then my mom literally one night said, I'm not going to let you join the Marine Corps. And I was like, I guess I'm joining the Marine Corps. Funny story, fast forward 15 years, Sergeant Cloverdance, Gunny Cloverdance, worked for me in my maintenance shop at 513.
No way.
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
How about that full circle? So he was a sergeant when you met him, and it was a gunny when you maintenance officer.
Yeah, great Marine. One of the best Marines I've worked with.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
they make rank pretty quickly. The first through about E5, but yeah, E5 to E7. That takes a week or two.
Yeah.
So very cool. Oh, that's awesome. So, what'd you major in college?
First of all, New Mexico is known as the Harvard of the Southwest. So
yeah, everybody knows.
I don't know if you guys know that, but
it's common knowledge. Everybody knows.
I started off as a computer engineer because I thought you had to be an engineer to be a pilot. And my MOI, Major Gilchrist, who was a 46 pilot, asked me, why are you doing engineering? Like, you're suffering. Like, you look miserable. And I was like, well, I want to be a fighter guy, and this is what, I got to do to be a jet guy. And he said, no, you can get whatever degree you want. So I switched to PE, may or may not gotten kicked out of the College of Education for some shenanigans. And I ended up graduating with a Bachelor of Undergraduate Studies.
What? Hold on a second.
Yes, sir.
Okay, is that a bus degree?
Hold on a second. That brings up two questions. Well, first, let's attack the first one. Point on. What is degree in undergraduate studies? What is that?
Exactly.
Does that exist?
Yeah,
is that possible?
It's a pretty cool degree. I was allowed to take whatever classes I wanted. I just had to get 127 credits, I think, and so many had to be 400, so many had to be 300. So I took like twice as many history classes than a history major. I took some law classes. I took some poly-slide classes, some PE classes. I took dancing, ballroom dancing, some aerobics. I basically just do whatever I want. It was basically like, let the dog off the leash, just go. I was told, you got to be out of here in 4 years. I was like, okay, well, I'll get out of here. So.
Wow. Okay.
That's encouraging to hear that was still going on, because
I just learned that. I didn't even know that was a thing.
I got my BA in history, and so I figured, I think this whole thing of having guys that have to have a 4.0 in mechanical engineering and electrical engineering and all that. I think you wash out a lot of guys at pretty fair sticks.
I took some cool classes. I took like this history of Vietnam. And it was taught by two professors. One was an infantry company commander, 2 tours, and one was a hippie at UNM during Vietnam.
Oh.
And so they'd be like, hey, March 1969. I'm knee deep in a rice paddy, fighting for my life. And then this guy's doing a sit-in at the chancellor's office. So it was it was one of those classes that, quite frankly, I would have never been able to take if I was X degree. So I did a bunch of classes like that. So, I do have a real master's, though. I got a master's of education from Kansas State University. Go Cats. So. And
that was a master's in education.
Yeah, master's.
Okay, so then let's go to the second part of that I picked up on. You said you were. I think you put it. You were kindly asked to leave the education department for some shenanigans. So I don't.
Yes.
Statute of limitations is up.
Yeah, you can.
So we're good. It was nothing illegal. I just think I don't know if you realized this during the 1 week we had together before you broke up with me. I like a good debate.
As most Marines do, by the way.
So I was taking this tennis class, and I'm usually really good at most sports I touch. I could not serve a ball. I still, to this day, cannot serve a ball over the net consistently.
It's in your head, dude.
Yeah, I don't like tennis anyways.
Got the yips.
Massive loss for me. But anyway, so I'm taking this class, and it's, I was a PE major, so they're like, hey, you're going to fail this class if you can't serve. And I was like, and at the same time, I'm taking this academic class where the teacher, who was the lead for PE, was like, hey, never fail a student if they're trying. Don't give them an A, but don't fail them. And so I was there early. I was there after class. I was like practicing. I just couldn't do it. And so they were going to fail me. So I protested it. I went into the lead, and she was a little on the left side. And I walked in there with my Mountain Warfare school shirt, which like a skull with a sword through its head and snakes, like the standard Marine Corps. Because I just completed that course in the summer. And so we're going back and forth. And I said, hey, this, I haven't missed a class. I'm working my butt off. I'm really trying hard. I'm getting 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10. And I'm being told if I'm going to fail. And if I fail, I'm going to get in trouble with my ROTC unit. So there's the double-edged sword here. And she was like, yeah, I know what I said in class, but that applies for your students, not for you. And I was like, okay, well, this is bullshit. So I took it to the next higher. So I went to the College of Education, and I laid my case out. And I just said, look, I'm not asking for an A. I need a C+ in tennis to keep my scholarship and for me to get out of this freaking class. And so and I'll never forget this, the dean who knew my mom, because she's a teacher out in town, and he's like, so why are you here? And I said, well, I'm going to fail this class, and all I'm asking for is C+. He's like, well, okay, well, why is this such a big deal? Why didn't they just give it to him? Like, I don't know. So he overrode him, gave me a B-.
Oh.
And so that lady was also my advisor. So I go into her, because you had to go in to get your schedule approved back in the day, and it was on paper. Sure. So I made an appointment. I have all my classes, and I'm going to do a couple classes with her. And, I got a full load the next semester. This is the end of my sophomore year. No, I'm sorry. This is end of my sophomore year. And so, I'm like, okay, I'm really trying to get ramped up so I can finish in 4 years because I'd switched. And she was like, hey, I'm glad you're here. Let's chat about next semester. So I'm like, oh, okay, great. She's like, so I've talked to the other professors, and we would just think it'd be great if you didn't enroll in this program next semester. And I was like, well, I was like, hey, man, look, I don't understand why, because I couldn't put 2 and 2 together because I'm not that smart. Like, why are you mad at me? Like, I'd show up. I'm a good student. I'm a hard worker. And they're like, oh, you like arguing? You wear these offensive shirts. I always would wear USMC, the gray one with just block letters. Yeah. And she's like, we really don't want you in this degree. So I had literally walked across the street to the College of University Studies, because that's what it's called, inside the University of New Mexico. And my buddy, who was a football player, is like, that's where all the athletes go, bro. You need to go do this degree. So I ended up with a Bachelor of Undergraduate Studies.
That's beautiful. Fantastic. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, indeed. Thanks. I used to wear one of those shirts in college. It was join the Marine Corps, travel the world, see exciting new lands, meet strange and unusual people, and kill them.
I had the same shirt. Yeah. That was one of the shirts that got me jammed up.
Yeah.
I don't understand why. Okay. So you graduated, went to TBS.
Yes.
When, what class, what TBS class?
I was a Delta class 2000. Delightful Delta, as we
The Buff and D.
And so that would have put you in Pensacola in the spring of 2001 sometime.
Yes, I checked into Pensacola December of 2000. I had about I was slated for about a 6-month wait. I broke my leg playing racquetball.
What?
Shattered it, 6 bolts and a plate. The Marine Corps tried to process me out, actually.
Yeah, you're not going to fly with that.
This is pre-war. So I fought like hell to stay in, and then they're like, "Well, you can stay in. You have to do something else." And I was like, "Well, never mind. I'll just."
You have to go be a grunt, hump around, because you can't sit in an air conditioned cockpit with bolts in your leg, but you go hump 20 miles.
Well, in fairness, they were concerned about a parachute. Like if you do get jets, your leg might shatter. I'm like, well,
really?
We'll cross that bridge if that ever happens.
Right.
The jet only tried to kill me a few times a few years later, but
okay. So hold on, back up. What part of your leg was broken? Knee, ankle,
right tibia.
Okay, right tibia, and it has the plate and screws and the whole.
To this day.
And so they said, you're done.
And now you can predict the weather.
So I was like, actually, it hurts when it gets really cold. And so I was like, hey, I'm out. And there's one flight surgeon's like, hey, here's the deal. If you, after the surgery and all this stuff, you get 6 weeks. If you can rehab in 6 weeks, run a PFT, and I was a 300 PFTer, sub 18 run. Like if you can go back to your normal, we'll give you a waiver. And I was like, yeah, dude, whatever. It's like 22 years old. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, bulletproof.
So, wait a minute, 6 weeks. Think about that, repeat.
I know, right?
Oh, dude, I fell the other day skiing, and my shoulder still hurts, and that was like 2 months ago.
I know.
Yeah.
So obviously it all worked out.
Yeah, it worked out. So funny story. Apparently, I was supposed to keep up with this waiver. So I get the waiver. I go to flight school. I crush it. My last year in the 214, I'm getting my last flight physical before I PCS to a staff job. And my flight surgeon walks up and she's like, hey, sir, you have a problem with your flight physical. And I was like, I'm healthy, a little older, a little fat.
What is it?
She's like, apparently your waiver, you never kept up with the waiver. I'm like, oh, well, I thought it was like a one-time thing. Like I've had this plate and 6 screws in my ankle for now 18 years. Now it's a problem. And the NAMI was trying to decertify me.
Of course it was.
After basically 20 years of
20
flying.
years of doing physicals every year.
See, the chance at the NAMI whammy never ends.
So I said, hey, Lieutenant, I got it. Just give me the number of this idiot. And it was some Navy captain in Pensacola. He's like, yeah. He's like, your waiver is expired. I'm like, dude, I'm a lieutenant colonel. I have 2,000 hours in the jet. At this point, who cares?
Yeah.
And so he kind of threw a big kerfuffle, and Headquarters Marine Corps had to get involved, and they gave me a one-time waiver.
He threw a big kerfuffle.
I was like, there's the dumb stuff that we worry about sometimes.
Oh,
like,
right.
Thank you. Click.
That's funny. Hold on a second. I got to write this down.
That may be a show title. I threw a big kerfuffle. Yeah.
I'm ready. That's right.
I want you to Harvard of the Southwest.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's the 50-cent word of the day there, man.
And honestly, that is just how non-commonsensical the NAMI medical process is.
Oh, they're horrible people.
It got him. It got repeat. It got. I don't know how many got. I mean,
I remember my first physical NAMI. They were like, my heart, the EKG. I was super skinny. I think I was like 4% body fat. I ran all the time. I still drank a lot, but way skinnier. And my heart rate, the EKG was thrown off because I had no body fat. And the guy was like, hey, you need to go eat like a ton of donuts, steak, and start smoking cigarettes, or you'll never pass your EKG. I was like,
that's fucking beautiful. That's just great advice.
Medical advice. Yeah, so I had to come back like a week later and do the EKG again so I would pass.
Wait, hold on. Did you go eat a bag of donuts a day and start smoking cigarettes?
All I ate was like steak and hamburgers and bacon, and I was smoking anyway, so I was drinking. I was like, the guy's like, you can literally do no wrong right now. I was like, okay. I have to tell this devil that twice.
All right, okay.
All right.
All right. So so the 6-month pool turned into how long until you actually got to the VTs?
6 months. They held me to the 6 months. So,
okay. Well, so during that 6 months, you broke your leg. You got 6-pin screws, the whole deal. Had to prove yourself. Got the one-time waiver that you thought was one time. Find out later, no, it wasn't. And then you make it to the VTs. Which VT?
I was VT3, the Red Knights, the Air Force Squadron up in Milton.
See, it wasn't an Air Force Squadron back in the day, but so that was the squadron that was commanded by an Air Force guy.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, Air Force Command, split students. So I was there the summer of 2001.
Okay.
Went through 9/11. That's when I got divorced from my practice wife.
Mulligan.
On 9/11.
Yeah.
And and then checked into VT22 in November of 2001.
All right. So the shit got real.
Yeah.
When you checked into VT22, the shit was real because we were in a no shit.
We were in no kidding war. Yeah.
All right. So tell us, do you remember like what you were thinking? It's like, holy shit, this is really gonna happen. This is happening for me. Yeah.
Every day I would just count my lucky stars. I'm like, this is actually happening. And I was very blessed to have a great on-wing at VT3. He was a Marine Cobra guy, Major Warner. I believe that was his name. Great dude. Basically said, you've got what it takes. And then I show up to Kingsville and then again had to sit because the Marine Corps ran out of money.
Yeah, right.
So I sat for about 4 months. Well, we sat
love
about
the
2
pool
months.
system.
Started.
Get your handicap down at least?
Yeah. Hey, at least we're consistent.
Right.
We're still doing this 25 years later.
60 years later.
Right. But yeah, no, I actually really enjoyed T-45 land. I thought it was some of the best training. You know, they had open sims, so I would jump in the sim and practice, and I really honed my skills. And I have a good group of dudes that I'd hang with that I still talk to this day. And we had a good crew.
Hey, how long did you say there was a pool when you got to VT22?
Yeah.
And how long was it?
4
6
months?
It was a total of it was about 2 months, and then we checked in and then started, and then they're like, oops, we don't have money for your class. And then we sat for another couple months.
Oh my gosh. Hey, just a side note, you just triggered this. I wrote the air to ground syllabus for the VT45.
Oh, did you really?
Or for the T45. Yeah, I did.
It was great.
In 1994.
Is that when the dinosaurs were still roaming the earth and
Yeah.
Careful. All right. So obviously, you're an outstanding Harrier pilot. So we know how that went for you.
Yeah, but before you get there, I got a quick question about the T-45 because Fig and I both went from A4s to the Harrier.
Yeah.
T-45 had a HUD, right?
No. So the answer is
yes. It did have a HUD.
Oh, okay.
It did have a HUD.
The answer is yes. I was in the T-45A, which still was majority steam gauge.
Okay.
And then we had a very rudimentary HUD for air to surface. The Meridian guys were the T-45C, which had a glass, more of a Harrier style glass cockpit where you could put waypoints and stuff like that. So
yes, but
right as I left Kingsville, we started really getting the season. I never flew one.
But I will say this: the layout of the cockpit was very Harrier-esque.
Yes. In retrospect, now that I think about it, yes, it was.
Yeah, the switches, everything looked like either it was making the transition from the T-45 to the F-18 or the Harrier really familiar.
Yes. A lot easier.
Because everything kind of looked.
That's where I was going. What was it like going from the T-45? Because going from the A4, which had a TACAN and a clock.
And one radio.
Was it was more of a fire hose than I expected.
It was definitely a fire hose, and I think the biggest challenge for me, I never flew the A4. The T-45 is woefully underpowered. It only has I think a 6,000 pound static or 7,000 pound static, and you go from that to the Harrier, which was 22,000 pound static.
That was not underpowered.
No, it was not underpowered.
No, not in a cold day in Cherry Point. You would have to hang on. I was actually pretty lucky too, because when I checked in the 203, we had day attacks still. So I got to fly day attacks, night attacks, and radars all in 203.
Yeah.
But yeah, the transition for me was actually pretty difficult. I would, before I'd go to the O Club on Friday nights, I would sneak into the sim and get an extra hour of sim time in to really hone my skills and get the scan, because I struggled with the scan initially on the HUD.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I became a HUD cripple in like
I'm not saying I wasn't on my way of being a HUD cripple, but for whatever reason, the scan in the HUD kind of threw me off. So.
Oh yeah, I get it. Okay, so things were different for you, really, from what Repeat and I went through. So let me ask you a couple. Let's get some level questions here.
Yeah.
How many guys were in your RAG class when you went through 203?
If I remember correctly, it was probably 8 or 10. It was 10, and then there was a female. She was escorted out the door, so 9.
So that's different.
Oh boy,
Repeat.
Yeah.
This was back before chicks were allowed. As a matter of fact, when we were in our squadron, there was no chicks allowed.
Oh no.
In any MOS.
They weren't even coming through as students left when I was still teaching at 203.
Well, not pilots, but there were no females in the Harrier. In the Harrier squadron, because we were deployable on a ship,
right.
And at that time, women weren't allowed on ships. So a lot transpired between when you went through and I went through. But that thought of because I know we've had female Harrier pilots, and so you actually had one in your RAG class that
she got washed out. Yes,
she got washed.
She was great. She was a great person, great Marine. Just too short, couldn't fit in the cockpit, couldn't manipulate the controls simultaneously. So
we had women at 203 in the various shops and maintenance and that sort of thing. When
she got reclassed to 53s.
Okay, I was going to ask if she got to. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
another overpowered airplane.
How long was the RAG syllabus from start to finish? Just
took me just at a year because I went through three red stripes.
What's that mean?
Explain what a red stripe is.
Oh, red stripe. Yeah, sorry guys. Red stripe is where the entire fleet is down due to some type of maintenance issues. So we had 3. One of them was for the fuel metering unit, the FMU. Actually, it was a good friend of mine, Rusty. He was rolling in. He was coming in to land, and as he added power, the engine actually rolled back.
That's fun.
So he had to go to manual fuel and land it. And then that happened to another 223 or 542. And then there was a couple in a day. And they said, okay, everyone's grounded. No more flying. Because obviously this is not just like a one-time issue. They did the investigation. They found it was the NADEP artisan not doing her job correctly.
Oh, wow.
And she was supposed to use a laser file, and she was hand filing these parts. And then, so there was like a lot of FMUs that had to get ripped off the jets.
Oh, man.
And then we had a red stripe. So we got grounded a few weeks later for an engine issue.
Hang on just a second. So NADEP is Naval Aviation Depot, and that's where they rework the airplanes when they need heavy rework. So
that's where Bagel works right now.
Bagel works at NADEP.
They're
on the F-35.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine. I need to stop doing that.
No, it's all good. Acronyms are fine. We try to define them all. So
it's amazing how we speak in acronyms. Like it doesn't even trigger. We had an engine bearing issue that got resolved pretty quickly, and then there was a final issue a couple months later with some of the ducting for the bleed air that runs our reaction control system. The way the Marines were switching motors, apparently they were stepping on it and causing damage, which then you'd have bleed air leaks, which is not good. Hot air next to fuel tanks.
Starts burning things up.
Yeah, and it's not cold air. I mean, it's 800 degrees Celsius. So, it took me just about a year. We had some bad weather too, standard cherry point. But I think all my peers were about a year or maybe a touch over.
I think we only had one red stripe when I was in the RAG, and that sucked.
Right. So first gun squadron was you were West Coast guy the whole time.
I was West Coast guy. Yeah.
So first gun squadron was 513.
513. Yeah.
Flying Nightmares.
Flying Nightmares. It was with them for a few months, and then ended up going on a detachment to Japan with VMA 311. They were short pilots, so I got pulled for that. That was a 9-month deployment to Iwakuni. We did Japan, Okinawa, Philippines, Korea. Some boat time. We were on and off the ship a lot. A couple exercises.
Which boat were you on?
We were. What was it? Oh, we were on the Essex, the LHD-2, the big floating deuce.
Okay.
LHD-1 was the Wasp, baby.
Yep.
You were on the Essex. And that was why you're Westpacked, right?
Yeah, Westpacked, yes.
Okay, so a few months, 513, then 311, you're Westpacked.
So then we come home back to Yuma, and when we landed, we got about 4 months, and then I got selected to go to a 15th MU, Marine Expeditionary Unit. At the time, we were SOC, big deal, Special Operations Capable, MUSOC, and that ended up being a 1-year deployment. So I did 9 months in Japan. I was home for about 5 months, and then we rolled in September, just short of September, might have been August, and we went basically straight west, 270 straight west. Got to hit Singapore, and then we went to India for a port call, which was interesting. And then we went to Iraq. We were only supposed to be at Al Assad for 30 days. We got extended 6 times, 30 days at a time.
Holy shit.
Yeah. But that was great, honestly. And like, this goes back to my original, this is all I ever wanted to do was deploy, right? And go do God's work. So, and I had a great debt OIC. We were actually with VMA 211, who was on a detachment, a dirt debt to Al Assad. So we had like a super Harrier squadron. We had 20 jets. Or 18 or 20 jets, I forget. But we were flying almost 24-hour operations for 7 months.
Wow.
Then,
man, that's hard on the equipment.
Okay, hold on. I got you. Just keyed a thought here. So when we were in our gun squadrons, the gun squadron had 20 jets. So how many jets were in the gun squadron when you got to 513?
I think we had 16 to 18 at that time. PAAs, planes, I forget, what's that term stand for? PAA. I used to know this when I was AMO. I was AMO 513 later on. That number kind of rolled all over the place. It got reduced in the late 2010 time to make sure we stayed healthy. The Harrier program, I will give all credit to the senior leadership in the early 2000s, late 2000s. They managed our fleet better than anybody else. When I was at XO 214, I would almost never air abort or have an issue on the ground. Our jets were so healthy. So
that's awesome.
All right. So at the end, when you were the XO, how many airplanes in the squadron?
32.
What?
Are you
because
kidding me?
We were shrinking.
You were flaming out squadrons, and so you were getting their jets.
Squadrons.
Oh, okay.
So 211 had just shut down, so we got all of their jets.
Okay.
Holy
shit.
So my last tour was nothing like my first tour in Yuma.
Okay.
It was actually kind of cool to see the development of Yuma, because it was 4 Harrier. It was a Harrier base, period.
Yeah.
Some F5 guys in the corner, and then you had the MOTS nerds. But really, it was a 4-gun squadron. It was a 4-gun squadron place.
Yeah, right.
And when I left, it was 1 Harrier squadron, 1.5 Harrier squadrons, and F-35 guys.
Okay.
And the flavor of and not in a bad way. I love my F-35 unicorn buddies. They're the best. But, but the culture had changed. And it was just interesting to kind of reflect on that as the old salty dude going, yeah, I don't remember us singing at the O Club. We would just drink and fight.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I'm trying to think. So about that time frame when you first got there, some of the senior leadership would have been like Lawman and Punky,
Wolfman,
Brain,
Colonel Woltman.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, those are our guys.
That's actually where I met Lawman for the first time.
Okay.
He's been intertwined in my career my whole time. So
a lot of people can say that. That guy got around.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit. So you hit Al Assad.
Yeah.
And when is that?
Oh, that was man, you're making me do math in public.
Yeah, man, public math. Get it done.
So that was
2003, 2004.
No. So I deployed. So my daughter was born in 2004. I went to Japan in 2004. That was 2005 to 2006.
Okay.
Yeah.
2005, 2006. Okay. Al Assad. So combat flying out of Al Assad. Talk about that. What sticks out? What's a day in the life of a Harrier pilot flying out of Al Assad doing?
So we were running split ops, right? So I was on the night shift with about half of the bros. So I would show up work 6 p.m. and I'd work till 6 a.m. I was flying probably, if memory serves correctly, about 4 to 6 hours per sortie.
46 hours a sortie. You must never sleep. 4 to 6.
You don't need that when you're a night god, right?
Yeah.
So we would normally launch between. We always had a section of Harriers airborne, so we sometimes would do a handoff, either airborne or just as they would land, we'd be rolling for takeoff. But yeah, I would usually fly about 2,200 at night to about 04 in the morning. That's when the ROE was the loosest, the rules of engagement. So if you were out walking about at night after 10 o'clock at night, you were considered a combatant. So there was a lot of killing going on and a lot of action. And then we were actually doing some pretty interesting operations where we didn't fly with tanks on. So we had a couple loadouts on the jet. So we had Lead had a GBU-12 and a rocket pod and a lightning pod for targeting. Dash 2 had a gun pod, laser maverick, and Lead had a JDAM, and then Dash 2 had a GBU-12 laser maverick and a gun pod with the lightning pod. So we had like this interesting mix between jets, and then we would do split kill box where sometimes my wingman Fig would be 100 miles away working a target, some 9 lines.
Single ship.
Wow. No kidding. Whoa.
Yeah. So I remember one time my wingman was over the dam, which was about 120 miles away, and I was over Fallujah. And so we would kind of enter the area of responsibility. We'd say, see ya. We'd split for about 50. We'd give the guys 50. We'd hit the tanker first, give guys about 50 minutes to an hour. There she is, good GBU-12, a laser-guided bomb.
Is that 500-pounder?
500-pounder.
Yeah.
And then we would actually meet back at the tanker. We'd get a splash of gas, chat, make sure everyone's good to go, and then we'd split again. And we would do that sometimes 2 or 3 times. Oh, that's a great picture of us tanking. That's 3. There's actually 4 of us. I was the one taking the picture. We were actually headed out to – that picture is of us headed west to go off the coast of California to do an AIM-9 air-to-air missile shoot.
Okay.
Nice. So we were over the
talking tanking, so I got to pick one of the pictures you sent me of you guys on the tanker.
Yeah, I think I sent you one with me in the basket too. But yeah, So that was pretty much the day, and then I was the logistics officer for the debt, and so my
not
job.
That one.
That's my.
there you go.
That's a great picture of us, my wingman and I, in Afghanistan, hitting the basket.
Okay.
We're behind a KC-130.
No, that is a fantastic picture, Warren, because
it is. Shows you how far back that damn basket was.
Yeah, it's so far back there.
So just for our listeners, okay, you can see the tail of the tanker in the top right corner of the picture, right? So you're on the right-hand refueling pod. Your wingman's on the left-hand refueling pod. But that basket is literally a beam of your face, right?
So if I remember correctly, the probe came out just a little bit past my shoulder.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was, I tell guys all the time, it was one of the hardest things we did, particularly at night, because you have no depth perception and that thing's flopping all over the place, right? So
yeah.
And you can't, if you kind of guess where the probe is. And as you get close, then you look over. And then at that point, it's rudder only. Because if you move the ailerons, that probe's moving big time, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Sim, that's a great question. The Harrier, our probe is off here to our left side. The Hornet is actually forward to the right. The Air Force guys, am I allowed to use foul language on this? So the Air Force
you're damn right you are. Fuck those guys.
The Air Force guys have a flying vagina on their back, and then the Air Force tanker puts their penis in their back. Yeah. We fly around with a big penis. Thank you, Fig. I should have got the rules of engagement. By the way, I do. I'm not a clean human being.
This podcast is considered explicit, so we can say, fuck and things like that.
You aren't supposed to fucking swear a lot, but
don't fucking swear just for the fuck of it. Okay.
But Fig, so I will tell you now that I'm not in the Marine Corps, I never did tanking per the book. I actually stared at the basket the whole time. I put the thing in the thing.
Put
the
that
flying
thing.
Penis and put it in the flying vagina.
Yeah. We've heard this before. The thing and the thing. Just put the thing in the thing.
It's what aviation's all about. So, So Sim's other question, real quick though, was: did you guys split up? Was that a Marine thing to split up over the AOR?
Yeah, I think that was pretty much a Marine thing. The Hornet guys that we shared a ramp with the Hornet guys.
We didn't even go cross country as single ship.
No,
I know.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you, that was one of the first time I did that. It's at night. It's low light. You're rolling around bad guy country in a single engine, single seat airplane on the goggles. And you're just like, okay, I guess this is normal.
What could go wrong? What
and
were they thinking?
This is normal.
Yeah. So I think that was purely a Marine Corps thing. So we could actually double the amount of JTARs, which is a joint tactical air request. So the grunts would put in basically their order for, hey, we need this, support. And the Marine Corps, probably someone way smarter than me, was like, hey, if we split these idiots up, we could do 2 at the same time.
Oh my gosh. So, repeat. I'm kind of blown away right now. I did not know.
So we were technically not allowed. The SOP was to not employ ordnance by yourself unless it was a troops in contact, a TIC. So we would try to rejoin the section if things were getting a little dicey. But a couple of times I had to deploy by myself because my wingman's 100 miles away. He's 20 minutes away.
So they split you up just to use the sensors type thing?
Yeah, basically we were just sensor operators, like very expensive Predator and Reapers. We were just more responsive. But yeah, so like a lot of times, my job, I was just telling my son this the other day, combat's basically like 1%, excitement and 99% absolute boredom, right?
Sheer boredom. That's aviation, right?
Yeah. I remember one night I checked in. It was my wingman went down in chalk. So now I'm just literally alone and unafraid. I'm flying around. I check in. It's about 1:00 in the morning over Ramadi. And, we shared that space, that battle space with the Army. So we had some Anglo guys, which are basically Marine liaisons. So, we don't shoot each other. And their call sign was Wild Eagle. I think so. Okay. Anyways, I check in and the JTAC's like, hey man, all the patrols are in. It's quiet night. Go just put your sensor on MSR Michigan, which was basically the main drag between Fallujah and Ramadi. And let me know what you see. And I'm going to bed. And I was like, what? Oh, okay. So I just put the sensor on the road and I looked for hot spots. Maybe someone dug a hole. That night was a really quiet night. And I just flew around for 5 hours just.
Oh, wow.
Staring at my crotch.
So 5 hours, no drop tanks. So tanker twice?
3 times. So usually pre-mission, mid-mission, and then if you had a third JTAR, you'd hit it 3 times. So it depends on the length of the event,
Okay. And then what was it like on daytime when you switched to daytime?
I did a couple weeks of the daytime. Daytime was interesting, right? So Iraq was really quiet. Right? They have major highways like interstates and all that. There's no cars, and if there were cars, we were trying to kill those. But during the day, you put your sensor in downtown Fallujah, there's women and children walk around. There's, people doing people things. And it was a totally different experience, Yeah. And just the colors and the flying during the day so I did like 3 months at night. So all I knew was like, I thought Iraq basically looked green and black, right? Because of the goggles.
Right.
And then I go do a couple weeks during the day. I'm like, those palm trees are green. Like there's actual life down there.
Yeah. And along the Mur, everything's green right there. Beautiful. And then everything else is brown.
Yeah. So not as much shooting during the day because it was fascinating. It'd be like basically doing a combat sortie over, Kansas City or Denver. Like there's just a lot of things going on.
Okay. Well, I like
fantastic.
that.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. But yeah, no, and then I was the S4 officer, S6 officer. So I was logistics and communication. And so when I wasn't flying, I was making sure the squadron was running as smoothly as possible, from shit paper to mail. Mail is a big one. I told my Marine, Sergeant Flechette, one of my first Marines that I ever got to work with on a personal level, I was like, we will not fuck up the mail, period.
That's a good way to go to jail, screw up the mail.
Well, hey, screw that. That's how you go to jail. But we will not get it. And this was before, this was in 2005 or 6 where, getting a phone call once a month was like you had to sign like a book and the XOs, like, don't be more than 10 minutes. Right. And I told Marines, like, the mail is probably the most important thing that we do right now. So,
yeah, think about that. How things have changed just since then.
Yeah. Well,
that was before
dudes had internet in their rooms and were taking VTC and their wives when we were getting rocketed. I'm like, can you guys stop talking? I don't even want to talk to my wife on a daily basis. Like, what are we doing?
Careful. She's just in the other room, I think.
She's cool. Hey, there she is right there.
Oh, man. You outkicked your coverage there, brother.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah, we all did.
No qualms telling me that, too. But.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Too funny. Oh, man. All right. Well,
So
you know what?
we
Go ahead.
came home on the boat. That's what took us so long, is that we weren't allowed to fly home. We had to ride the ship back to America.
And how long did that take?
Well, at 13 knots, it takes about 2 months.
Holy shit.
lost
That's
the
if you
boiler
do a
coming
straight
out of
line,
Perth.
which they probably didn't do.
Well, we went into Perth for a week, which was awesome, right? Like after 7 months of combat, basically, like I felt bad for Perth because we had the whole MEU with us, so the grunts, the arties, the tank guys. We basically tried to burn that place to the ground. And when we came out of Perth, the Navy like sucked in some seaweed or something, and so we lost a boiler for the rest of the trip.
Oh, cold showers, which
bad.
you needed after Perth.
I felt bad for Perth. That's another.
I really did. I was like, this is not good for anyone.
No, right?
We need to say thank you to Robbie Walling. And how did you put it, Fig? Don't be a moron. Call Robbie Walling. So there I was, flying high, thinking my retirement was locked in, running smooth, no adjustments needed. Then it hit me. Retirement planning isn't something you can just put on autopilot. You can't just set it and hope for the best. If you're not actively steering, you could be drifting off course without even realizing it. That's why pilots who get it turn to HSI Wealth Strategies. These guys aren't your typical financial advisors. They're pilots. Military, airline, guard, civil. They've sat where you're sitting. They understand the unique financial landscape pilots face, from high earning years to the minefield of taxes and inflation waiting down range. And here's the kicker. On average, they're saving pilots $1 million or more just by making smart course corrections. The earlier you start working with them, the more opportunities they have to reduce your lifetime tax burden and keep more of your hard-earned money where it belongs. But don't worry, even if you're closer to your Centrum Silver years, they have the expertise to help make the most of your approach to retirement. Now, let me ask you something. If your airplane was leaking fuel mid-flight, would you ignore it and hope you still had enough to make it to your destination? Of course not. You'd act immediately. Your retirement is no different. If you're not taking control now, you could be watching your hard-earned money evaporate through unnecessary taxes and inefficient planning. And listen, we all know the classic joke. How does a pilot make $1 million? Well, he starts with $2 million and manages it himself for 6 months. Funny? Yes, but humor has truth to it, and this one is painfully true. So here's your wake-up call. This is your moment right now. You have a choice. You can keep hoping your retirement lands smoothly, or you can take action and get a real strategy from people who know exactly what it takes to make it work for pilots. Call Robbie Walling at 214-538-7030. That's 214-JET-7030. Or email robert.walling@nm.com. That's robert.walling, WALLING, at novembermike.com. Because when it comes to your financial future, you only get one final approach, and there are no go-arounds. HSI Wealth Strategies. Pilots guiding pilots to a smooth landing in retirement. What were you going to say, Fig?
I have no idea.
Don't be a moron. Call Robbie. Seriously, this guy knows his stuff.
Oh, yeah. Don't be a moron. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. All right.
So 2 months back at 13 knots, whether you need it or not, after burning Perth down. So we need a funny Perth story.
Yeah, I got a couple.
Why am I not?
So we're a detachment of 9 pilots, right? I think we had 2 majors. One guy got promoted, 2 majors, and a bunch of just idiot captains. You know, we're all salty. So we rent this flat, and it's right above a bar, this Danish bar.
No.
Right? It seems logical, right? So, you know, and so we're while we're there, it's the Danish Queen's birthday, apparently. Like, who knew? And
who knew?
So we're there, we're partying pretty hard. And, you know, the girls are not ugly. I'll just put it that way. No. And my buddy disappears. We're like, that's kind of weird. You know, whatever. And so, you know, and they don't stop serving in Perth. So we drink until the sun comes back up. And then we go back to the room And he is like passed out on the floor with like porn on the TV with his hand on his crank. That's where he went.
That's where he went. We lost him, and now we found him. Oh, that's funny. That's fucking great.
You probably weren't expecting that.
I was not expecting that. So,
and
I'm
hence we have
they
earned our E rating for explicit tonight.
I am shocked that they rented you flat.
Right?
Yeah, it was a really cool little flat, and it was. I guess this was like pre-Vrbo or Airbnb or whatever. But yeah, it was basically like a vacation rental in downtown Perth, and it was a great time. Did the wine country, drank a bunch of booze, snuck a bunch back onto the ship, because we knew we weren't going to really fly much. So yeah, it was a great tour, a great way to wrap up my first tour as a Harrier pilot.
So that ride home was strictly a ride. You guys weren't conducting air ops.
Yeah, we got to fly some, as long the ship basically is like, we won't turn the ship more than like 20 degrees to make winds. So on the days that we would write a flight schedule, and some days we didn't have the winds, and so we would just cancel the flight schedule. And then there was other days, which I forget to send you the picture, but I got to lead a strike, high strike into the FDR range in Guam with some high drag ordnance. And I was working on my division lead at the time, so I got to lead a division of jets off the ship, do all the fuel planning, led the division, fought our way in, went in low level, 300 feet right over the water, did our pops, dropped the ordnance on the target, and then we had to scoot back to the ship and Charlie on arrival, because we were basically like bingo minus 100 pounds. Like the fuel planning was really tight, and luckily the ship was right where I thought it was going to be. I did the planning down to like within
always
like
good,
a mile, which is a first, right? The Navy actually did what they said they were going to do.
Weird, yeah.
And brought all 4 jets back, and it was a great training event for me as a pilot.
All right, Ward, you threw out a bunch of stuff here, and I want to circle back, and I want to have you repeat. And I know what you're talking about, but so for our non-tactical jet listeners, describe what a high-low high profile is.
A high-low high profile is basically where you plan your flight so that you get as high as you, because it's a long range. So essentially, it's a long range strike, right? We didn't have a tanker. So how do we get 4 thirsty Harriers across the target? I think the target was like 300 miles away. So basically, you plan to go as high as you can get the jet. So we got into the 30s for a period of time. And then before the enemy could see us on radar or whatever the threat scenario was, we would literally do a tactical descent. So stuff the nose, do 500 knots on the way down, get to 300 feet. This is the low portion. Strike the target, fight our way out of the target, and then we would hit a point where like, hey, we got to go high again. And then we did what's called the bingo profile, which basically we would just get the jet as high as we could, suck the power back to idle, and do a 230-knot descent to save as much gas as we could for the approach to the ship. So that's a high-low high.
1,000 feet. Yeah.
Excellent. And then last thing is Charlie on arrival. What is that?
Oh, yeah. Dude, I got to describe stuff. So the sign, if you ever hear Charlie, your sign is Charlie. So you'll be holding over the ship, right, waiting for the helicopter
in the stack,
away,
in the Martian stack,
whatever. So your Charlie time is the time you're supposed to be wheels crossing the deck. So a lot of times in training, and even when we did some combat missions, we would say, hey, your Charlie time is 12 o'clock, meaning we would backwards plan like, okay, we need to be overhead the ship at 11:50 because it's a 10-minute process to get down and come in for the initial and do all our stuff. So you would backward plan everything. Charlie on arrival basically means don't stop at go, pass go, collect your $200 so the Marine Corps can take $199 and basically get your butt to the ship because the ship's not going to be there for very long.
Right. Awesome. And so you said and the ship was where they said they were going to be. So can you kind of talk about that a little bit? Because Repeat and I
love my Navy bros, particularly the SWO. My last tour in the Marine Corps was with the SWOs. I love them to death. Great people.
Surface warfare officers.
Yeah, surface warfare officers. Can't do basic math, even at 15 miles an hour. A lot of times. So there's this thing called PIM, primary intended movement, where the ship says, hey, today we're going to be at this point at this time. We're going to be at this point at this time. And it's all based on the ship doing 12 knots, 15 knots, or doing certain turns or whatever. But for whatever reason, ensigns freshly graduated from the freaking academy can't do the basic math. And usually we were behind PIM, which means the ship was not on time, which means the ship would go full speed and not be where they're supposed to be. So it was really hard to do mission planning for these Charlie on arrivals, because if the ship went slow, I might be 30 miles in front of the ship. And if the ship went faster than they said they were going to be, then I would be 30 miles behind them, which would totally throw off my fuel calculations, because that's how tight that one event was. Yeah. We were talking within like a 10-minute window where we were going to be in some deep doo-doo.
Why is that?
Well, because we were blue water. We were blue water, meaning we had no alternate, we had no tanker, and we had no options. So we were either putting the jet on the deck or we were going feet wet. So
yeah, that's the real deal.
Yeah, it was real. It was actually really eye-opening. Mm-hmm. It was my first time ever doing that. And, on the whole way back, you're just like, oh, everyone check in with their fuel. Everyone check in with their fuel. And then guys were like, yeah, I'm bingo -2. And you're like, oh, dude, okay, you shuffle over here. I need you next to me because you're the lowest guy. It was a lot of stress. It's probably that wrinkle right there.
To quote Bill Cosby, how long can you tread water? Oh, thanks. Yeah. Sticks puts up a picture of a Coast Guard chopper pulling a guy out of the water. No Coast Guard out there either, Sticks, man. That's just, hope the ship turns around and comes get your ass.
We had our 60 bros. We had a SAR.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Good. Love my SAR guys. Always bought them beer in the port. Every time I see
why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. The other thing you talked about was you were working on your division lead. Tell us what that is. Tell us what your division lead is.
Yeah. So, everyone thinks flight school is where you stop learning and progressing in aviation. And really, and I had a great mentor in flight school. He was a Harrier guy, Sarge. He said, you never stop learning. Really, your wings are just the key to the next adventure, right? And so you show up to the squadron as a basic combat wingman. Basically, you can fly the airplane, but you can't really fight it very well. And so you go into a syllabus where you train to be a better shot, a better bomber. And then eventually you're like, hey, now I can lead a section, which is 2 airplanes. So you get your section lead. Usually, at least for the Harrier community, is about a year and about 300 hours, plus or minus. And then once you get your section lead, again, now you're relearning everything. You have to go back into learning because I would just follow Fig around, right? Because he was the lead. Now I'm the lead. I'm responsible for gas. I'm responsible for finding the tanker. I'm responsible for the weather, the NOTAMs, all of the big boy stuff. So I was, my first deployment to Japan, I was just a combat wingman. And then my first combat deployment, I was a section lead. And then you basically once you kind of prove your chops, the CO is like, okay, Warren, you're not as retarded as we thought you were. We're going to give you now 3 airplanes. So a division is a total of 4. Which only magnifies the complexity by about 100, right? Because it's 2 sections, and a lot of times you'll fight the sections, but how do you rejoin off target? How do you join at night? How do you plan for dash 4 getting lost, which I had, for some reason, in my division lead build, dash 4 was either doing it on purpose or was a total idiot. Because I'm like, where are you? And you would see the air-to-air TACAM like 20 miles away. You're like, come on, bro. Like, it's not that hard. But yeah.
Right.
And you were flying airplanes that had air-to-air radar, yes?
Yeah. So we had an interesting mix on my detachment. My first 2 deployments, we did a 4-2 split. So we had 4 radar birds and 2 night attacks. Okay. But that doesn't mean the radars ever worked. I mean, basically, you were just a heavy night attack. The APG-65 is about as useful as a blind guy reading Braille. So.
Wow. I don't feel so bad, Repeat. You feel bad? I don't feel bad.
No kidding.
But later on, though, when we got one of the last software tapes that we got, so we got new software. It's called Harrier 2.0 or H3.0. My last tour, we were H5.0 or 6.0. The radar was pretty good. They finally got the right software in there, and the dish actually you could find the tanker. That was rad.
Find the tanker, find your wingman.
Yeah.
Find the flight you're supposed to be joining on.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Now, the other thing that's interesting, though, is that, you talk to the Air Force guys, and the Dos Gringos even have the song about it. I'm a wingman. We don't know shit. and all that. But I seem to remember that when I was a wingman, not a section lead, I probably did more leading as a wingman than I did as an actual section lead. When I became a section lead, now it was time to mentor the other guy and make him be the lead and teach him, okay, here's where you could have done this better. Here's where, That's
the standard military, right? You're always trying to train the guy to replace you. I remember I was in 513. I had been in the squadron 45 days, right? And it was going to be my first time doing close air support, tank, close air support, up in 29 Palms. It's going to be my first time in the Palms, right? And dropping live ordnance and shooting the gun. And I think I had a pot of rockets.
Nice.
And it was the first time I was going to tank in the fleet, right? And so it was a 6 a.m. brief for a 7:30 departure. No, I'm sorry. It was a 5 a.m. brief. So we were like the first go. We were dawn patrol. And I'm, the day before I'm planning, I'm like, it was this crusty old major, Fester. Great dude. And he was like, my call sign was Ladder. I was like, Ladder, you got it. Do all the planning. I was like, okay. So I do all the planning. I print all the cards up. I get everything all ready. I wake up 20 times at night because I'm so nervous. And so I'm at the squadron, 4:45. I'm sure Fester will be here. 5 o'clock doesn't show. 5:15 doesn't show. 5:30 doesn't show. So I'm like, fuck, I got to call this guy. So I call him up. I'm like, he's like, hello? Hey. Yeah, man, it's Ladder, dude. Where are you, bro? I'm in the briefing. He's like, fuck, that's today? So he comes screaming into the squadron. And now we have 20 minutes to brief what I, at the time, was like, I've never done this. I'm a little nervous, right?
There's a lot of moving parts to what you're about to do.
Oh, yeah, there is.
And if you don't support this frag, which I didn't even know what a frag was, if you no-show, then the CO gets a phone call and ops gets crapped on. Yep. And so he's like, hey, SOP, you've got the lead.
What?
I was like, what are you talking about? He was like, you put the cards together, right? I said, yeah, I got the Z diagrams. He's like, yeah, dude, you got the lead. So I led this section up. I've literally only done 5 flights in the squadron. And and we get up there, have a hard time getting in the tanker because the basket's flopping all over the place. Ended up, and it was terrible. I couldn't talk on the radio. I totally had my ass hanging out of the cockpit the whole time. And we come back, he's like, hey, dude, that was pretty good. Considering, we did A, brief, B, you have no idea what you're doing, do you? I'm like, no.
Yeah, I had fifth flight in the squadron for crying.
There you go. Exactly. Now, you mentioned it, though, so you don't know what a frag is. Explain what a frag is and why it's called a frag.
Yeah, it's a frag. So the grunts, who are our customers, the Marines, and this is why I love being a Marine, we only exist as Harrier dudes, and quite frankly, TAC Air in general, we only exist because the grunts need help, and they need our help, and we look good doing it, by the way. Yeah. So the grunts put in frags, which are basically requests for training support in 29 Palms, our premier, quote-unquote, premier training center in the country for Marines, live ordnance, where they can do their maneuver with fire, and then they can practice calling in gun runs and bombs and doing 9 lines. And it's really cool to see the magic of tanks, grunts, helicopters, and jets coming in, dropping ordnance, and the timing of it. It's actually really a beautiful thing to see from both the air and the ground side. So a frag is basically a demand from our customer. We need 2 Harriers at noon with 4 Mark 82s, 300 rounds of 25 millimeter for 2 hours. And then that goes up to the MEF, our highest headquarters, and then that gets fished out to the squadrons. And it's basically you shall show up and do this.
Yeah.
And they get it, if the planes break or whatever, but I was the MAG 13 OPSO at one point in my career, and that is no kidding of one of the craziest processes. And when guys no show or say, hey, we can't do this, there's some dancing.
It's a big damn deal.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Because we exist, Marine Corps aviation exists for one purpose.
Yeah.
To kill.
You got one job.
Yeah. Yep. Support the Marine fighters on the ground.
I used to have a patch that said Taliban customer support agent.
Nice. Fantastic.
Yeah. So the bottom line is, if you can't do your job supporting those Marines on the ground, somebody's got to answer for that.
Well, and why have us? And that's my big push about the Harriers. Yeah. That's what we live for. Every patch we wore on our shoulder, Fig, and
repeat. There you go. It's written right there at the bottom.
Whoa, dude, come in slack.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ask you to read, Marine.
Bachelor of Undergraduate Studies, very low expectations.
Right on.
It says closed air support, right? And that I took that very seriously. Like that is our bread and butter, because really, at the end of the day, the Air Force guys can do it, the Navy guys can do it. We just do it better. So it's a point.
It's what we live for.
Yeah.
It's cool shit. So, and then the other thing, I'll answer the other part of that question, which was why is it a frag? We're a fragment of the overall order of battle. And, so that's our frag order. So,
yeah, frag.
Okay. It's completely off topic. Call sign Warren.
Oh, you beat me to it, Fig.
How did that happen? I mean,
it's a funny story. How much beer do you have?
Ladder? How'd you become Warren, Ladder? How'd you become Ladder?
Well, Jacobs is my last name. Ladder was not very original. Okay. So I basically went through flight school, not really screwing anything up. And my goal was to be the stealth candidate, right? Like I was trying
as everybody
hide and slide,
right?
Yeah, right. Hide and slide, stealth candidate. I am kind of a loudmouth, kind of a big voice. Apparently, my wife says my voice and my laugh will cut through concrete. I think she means that as a compliment, but
yes, that's a total compliment. Totally.
But so I made it through flight school, and I made it through the RAC without really boning up anything major to kind of highlight myself. But on my first deployment in Japan, I tried to drink all the beer all the time, and you can't do that in Japan because they just make more.
You can get did they still have it in vending machines on the side of the
street? You can get beer in vending machines.
Yeah. Sapporo, right?
So
yes.
One night I was with one of my buddies, and so one of the first things you land in Iwakuni, Marine Corps Air Station Iwakuni, which used to be an old Japanese Air Force Zero training base. They have this hangar,
the Zero hangar.
The Zero hangar, and it looks like a half moon, very gentle, sloping, and of course they put the O Club right next to that.
Yeah.
Right?
And you're not allowed to run on the roof of that hangar.
Not supposed to run.
Well, so the second thing they tell you in Japan is do not try to ride your bike over it. And I was like, well, challenge accepted.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So one night, it was like a Wednesday night. I think it was Mongolian night. I had a long day. I was a schedule writer. It was just a rough day.
Mongolian barbecue at the club.
Yeah. Right. And so, after like 6, 7, 10, 20 beers, I don't know. I lost count. My buddy's like, it's time. We got to ride our bikes over this thing.
Yeah.
Oh, challenge accepted. Let's do it.
Well, it's on the way home.
It's on the way home.
It's in your way.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, come on.
It's on the way. It's on the way.
Yeah. So I'm in the parking lot, like getting, I'm like looking at it and I'm getting a big head of steam. I didn't realize that they have like cameras in the freaking tree. And like, so I'm like, right. And my buddy's like, it's clear.
Thank God they didn't have them when we were there.
So I'm like pedaling and I'm calling. And then that's when I realized it's not this. It's not gentle. It's like this. Yeah, it's steep. So just as I come up to it, my buddy's like, don't do it. I was like, what? Bam. I slam into this thing full freaking speed. Cops roll up. It's 2 Lance Corporals with a
did you endo at that point? Endo over the bar?
Just face plant right into the concrete, right? And they're like, whoop, whoop. Come here, sir. And so I get up and I'm like, my face is bleeding and my flight suit's all jacked up and my handlebars are all bent.
Yeah. And the MPs are there.
I'm like, hey, Devil Dog, what's up? And they're like,
what's up, Marines?
Hey, sir, you can't ride your bike over the Zero. Like,
no, I'm riding into it.
I was like, well, I didn't. Yeah, there's a great picture. Oh, yeah. Great history. Of
Nicely done, Sticks. Picture
well
of the...
Sticks. Well done. Hey, repeat. That building did not used to be behind it.
No, you guys won't recognize Iwakuni right now.
I don't know what that building is.
Put that back up again briefly, Sticks, please.
That building was
off
not
base.
there.
That's actually off base. Yeah, that's actually,
get out of here.
Yeah.
So back in our day, there was nothing behind that.
No.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh,
yeah, there was an A4 parked like to the left of it. So I'm like, hey, Marines, look, here's the deal. I didn't ride my bike over the Zero hangar. Like, sir, we literally saw you. I was like, no. I used it to slow myself down because I lost my brakes.
You thought of that right in the moment?
Yeah. And my buddy who's trying to make his getaway falls over laughing.
Oh.
And the Marine, and I'll never forget, he looks at me and goes, sir, you and your idiot friend, go to your barracks room and we better not see you tonight. Like, okay, whatever. So, yeah, Mike calls that. And I did some other shenanigans. I may have gotten a fight, Kadena O Club, by calling a Navy commander pussy and a lot of other shenanigans. My first deployment, I was totally misbehaved little renegade. I don't know why. I have a really bad renegade streak that runs in my blood. But yeah, call signs Warren, the retarded kid from Something About Mary.
Oh my gosh! And that was awarded to you at a
kangaroo court with
okay.
Yep, the kangaroo court was summoned by the skipper at the time. It was Colonel Robert Cutter Cookcook.
Rob Cookcook. Yeah.
Hey, so, I think I told you this. Yeah. But we went to we were TVS classmates.
Yeah, love him. Cutter. So he summoned a K court. I had to answer for very serious charges stemming from that and writing my name in wet concrete, getting in fights, walking around with my junk hanging out of my flight suit. There was a lot of charges. Most of them were grossly untrue.
Sure.
Only 10% has to be true.
And so, so I was awarded the call sign.
Hey, that reminds me, there's Warren right there. Yeah. Thank you, Sticks. We have to get Cutter on.
Yes.
Yeah, we do.
I have his number. I'll text you his number.
I have him in my phone as well, but let's do this. Let's double tap him.
Oh yeah.
You
I think I roll in on that too, but
so we'll triple tap him.
Great CO.
Yeah, we need to get Cutter on. Okay, that's great. I love that. Of course I had a little inside baseball. I knew that was coming, but I wanted you to tell the story because I love the call sign.
Quick aside on the Zero Hanger. That's how Turnip's wife became Miss Taiwan Boogie. After being out at Mr. Lee's and drinking Taiwan Boogies, she ran over that Zero Hanger and came down without any skin on her knees on the other side.
I'll tell you, that thing is steeper than it looks.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It's steeper than it looks. It is steeper than it looks. I mean, a friend told me. Yeah. That's all I can say about that.
I'm pretty sure the statutory limits are, but for you, Fager,
I ran over that thing butt-ass naked twice. Twice on a dare. And of course, that was before cameras in the trees and all that bullshit. Nobody had cell phones in 1992. No. Repeat's the only dude that knew that there was an internet. Nobody else knew what the fuck that was.
So yeah, actually, I had gone to safety school and I had a Tandy laptop computer and I set up a modem at the house and my wife would turn it on like every night at 7 p.m. or something like that, and I was able to transmit email, for lack of a better. It wasn't an email address, but I could transmit letters and information to and from, so we could instantaneously get letters.
Wow, that's cool.
That was in 1992. Yeah.
He came out of the room one night. We were having a party, and we're like, "Where the fuck you been?" He goes, "I've been talking to Shay." We're like, "You've been talking to Shay for an hour? That's going to cost $1 million." He goes, "No, I was doing it on the internet."
So how much porn were you looking on that? Like, are we talking?
There was no porn in those days, brother. That was all LCD. You had gray and black. Those were your two colors.
There was no internet.
No.
It was the thing.
I think those were the days of squiggly porn, wasn't it?
It was crazy. That's why he's still ahead of his time. Wow. All right. Awesome. All right. Now
we got to get to a certain functional check flight, I think.
Yeah.
Well, you want to do that now? Yeah, let's do it now. You want to do it now?
Yeah, well, I can summarize. The middle part of my career is kind of boring. I went to Expeditionary Warfare School, hung out with the grunts, then came back to Yuma.
Well, hold on a second. Did you do a tour as a JTAC or a
No,
FAC?
I did not. So my career is kind of interesting. I did 2 schools. I went to Expeditionary Warfare School in Quantico, Virginia for 10 months, came right back to Yuma, flew for about a year, stood up this thing called MATS. It's Marine Air Training Systems Squadron. So basically we had contractors running the simulators, and then I showed up and I became the OPSO for the simulator building. I helped install new sims. I learned a lot about kind of what I do now for the company, but on a much obviously smaller scale.
Sure.
And then I had an individual augmentee deployment to the CAOC, which is the Combined Air Center.
At Al Udeid?
Al Udeid at the Deed, where I was the SOTO, the Senior Offensive Duty Officer. And unfortunately, it was not a flying tour, but I tell you, being part of the supporting cast for dudes doing all the killing, my job was to coordinate all the air for Iraq, Afghanistan, and a couple other places. It was a really rewarding deployment. Just as
How long did that last? How long were you there? How long a period of time?
I did 6 months.
And when was that?
when was that? So my son was born in 8. So that was the summer of the summer of 9 to January 2010. Most of my anchors are when my children were born.
Okay. Awesome. Of course. Yeah. I get it. Okay. And then what?
So then I come back to the Flying Nightmares, and Colonel Lee, Peter Lee, Chum Lee, became the skipper. He hired me. I became the aircraft maintenance officer for the squadron, and I was the maintenance officer for almost 3 years. 2.5 years. So the most rewarding tour, I got to deal with Marines. I had 16 jets, about 250 Marines. And then we got tagged right after I showed up. We were supposed to go to Japan. And then Colonel Nerad Ripper flipped the script on us.
We're trying to get him on too.
Hey, we know
I got his number. Yeah. He's a great American.
Oh, sweet. He's doing like a CEO thing or something somewhere now, right? He's
at Omega. Last time I talked to him, he's at the contract air-to-air refueling guy.
Because we had Bart on. Bart and Ripper were tight.
Yes. Yeah. Bart's awesome. Ripper, I love that man because he got us to go to Afghanistan, which was my goal, was to do double combat deployment. So got to go to Afghanistan.
Talk about that.
Yeah. So that was a rewarding tour. Had a little hiccup with the engines, might have torched 13 motors in like 2 days. Like apparently that was a big deal.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Well, so how did that talk about?
Yeah.
That?
So after we were in Afghanistan in the summer of 2011, and we were the first squadron to deploy with the lightning pod, which is our sensor. Most of the time it would sit on a station, right? So it would take up a bomb station. Well, General Davis, Doc Davis, was in charge of, I think he was second MAW, and we got an aircraft mod where we could then hang the lightning pod on our centerline station.
I didn't know you could hang it anywhere else. Damn. Okay.
No. So we were for a long time only station 5, and then we got permission for 2 and 6. Well, that was really dumb because you have a T-pod on station 2 or 6, and then drop a bomb. Now you're asymmetric and you're flying around, and you can't go to the ship that way. It was a terrible, terrible idea.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, we don't use this station 4. Let's slap a cord down there. So before we deployed, we found this out 60 days before deployment, and Doc Davis told us, you will show up to combat with 12 jets with centerline modification, which required my Marines. There she is. That's not a Harrier. That's a Hornet. Get that garbage off.
Yeah, right. So hold on a second.
Could you? Here's one.
Is it in between? Is it in between the gun pack?
Yeah, I was going to say, could you carry the gun and that?
Yeah.
Shit hot.
If I can do 2 things at once, I'll find a picture of it for you. But yeah, so it's between the strakes or the gun packs. But we were going to take the gun. So yeah, you can put it right between the gun pack and the gun and the ammo pack.
Okay.
But to do it, we have to swing the wing off, pull the motor out. It's about a 5-day mod. Then we have to re-swing the motor, re-swing the wing. And basically, I was given – there she is.
There it is. That's badass right there. That's badass.
I love that pictures. Miss you.
Look at that. Okay. Wow. Nice job.
So my Marines, and God bless the Marines, I had to sit them down. And I said, look, we're going to have to figure out pre-deployment leave. This was right after we did our pre-deployment workup. We had like 2 or 3 jets with the mod, but we had a plan to take a little bit of everything. I said, hey, boys, we're going to have to swing 14 motors in less than 60 days.
I bet they got good at that fast.
And deploy on time. We cannot be a day late. And my Master Sergeant Saunders, my maintenance chief, and my MMCO, Chief Warrant Officer, now he's a retired, I think, Lieutenant Colonel Gus Ralph, the stinkiest man I've ever met, by the way, different story. But they motivated the Marines. And what was interesting is we got an engine swing. It used to take us between 7 and 14 days to swing a motor. We were down to about 5 days in garrison.
Can you define swing a motor?
Yeah. So I want everyone to close their eyes. You've got to pull the jet into a hangar. You have to put it on.
Hold on. If you're driving, don't close your eyes. Just think about
it. Don't close your eyes. If you're driving, don't close your eyes.
From the audio listeners.
Yeah.
And then what you have to do is to put the jet on jacks, but not level. You have to tilt the nose down like 8 degrees. Okay.
Yep.
Then you have to get a crane to pull the wing off. Right. And it has to go on a special little stand. It can't just go on the ground. And then you have to pull this $13 million Rolls-Royce Pegasus motor out, put it on a special little stand. And then there's a lot of just parts and things and magical things. I don't know what actually goes on in there.
All kinds of fittings.
fittings and hoses and gaskets and consumables and non-consumables.
And you can't forget one either, I bet.
No.
No.
So then,
clamps, screws.
And then AVI has to come in. The avionics Marines, the wire guys, have to come in and run this very special fiber optic cable, which you can't pinch it and you can't do this. And so thank God for Gunny Siegfried. Ziggy, I love you. The man of the hour just takes charge. We get the mods out. We get the engines back in, which so then you got to put the engine in, got to put the wing on, you got to raise the jet, put the gear down. Then you have to functional it, which means you have to cycle the gear, make sure the flaps, make sure everything's connected. Then pull the jet out and do a low power, meaning just start the engine, make sure it doesn't explode. And then it runs at low power.
That's important.
Yep, good thing. And then, God bless these Marines like Gunny Ox. Man, names escape me. Then they go to high power where you have to chain the beast down.
Yep.
And there's a special chain. It weighs like 300 pounds. And you chain the jet down and you high power it. And if you've ever seen a tiger in a cage and someone hitting it with a cattle prod, that's about the equivalent of a Harrier doing a high power.
I got to interrupt. Fig, were you there at Cherry Point when our young enlisted Marines were getting flight time in the Harrier?
Yes. They were loosening the chain like a quarter inch.
Yes.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, so what they were doing, they loosened the chain just enough, and they were getting the damn thing airborne, running it at high power.
And
there's a great picture right there. So you've got
and then they broke the chain one night though, and destroyed a jet.
So this is a radar jet, and there's a 408 motor, a Pegasus motor coming out, and it takes time. I mean, this is not something you can do in 3-4 days. Gunny Tyree, he was my QA chief, quality assurance chief. So anyways, I've got this great team. And so we get this done. We do more jets than we were tasked to do because I wanted a couple spares because, the Harrier sometimes is not the most reliable girlfriend. So anyways, we deploy. We get to Afghanistan on time. We're doing combat missions, but it's hot. And a lot of people don't know this is the Harrier burns water. Demineralized water, 500 pounds, which is about 90 seconds worth. I like to just call it the poor man's afterburner, right? So we're doing wet takeoffs because we have a T-pod, which weighs about 300, 400 pounds, tanks. So we were taking off with 11,000 pounds of fuel. And then we had 2 GBU 38s, laser JDAMs. So both laser guided and GPS guided.
500 pounders?
500 pounders. Yeah, that was the preferred weapon at the time. And a gun pack. So we were taking off routinely right at max gross weight, right? So we're doing wet takeoffs. And what we did not know.
Wet takeoffs means water selection.
Water flows, yeah, right? So if you don't have water flowing, you probably ain't going to get the rotation speed. And it's going to get very awkward very quickly at the end of the short runway in Kandahar. But
and you're flying out of Kandahar. Yes,
but yeah, we were Kandahar, yeah. And we had replaced a Hornet squadron. So they were not they didn't have water requirements, right? So we have to get a pretty clean water from the Army Corps of Engineers on the base to go through this thing called the demineralization cart. The Marines, basically you fill it up and it had a couple of filters and it would like basically triple reverse osmosis.
Like a still.
Takes all the minerals out of the water.
Yeah, it was a still.
Literally all the hard things out of the water.
Yeah, I mean, it's not distilled, right? It's demineralized.
Yeah.
And so I found out I'm actually quite the water nerd. I'm like water boy now because trust me, this was a scarring event in my life. What we found out was the water was so hard in Afghanistan that the demon cart couldn't handle it. And so the fatal flaw in the lowest bidder on that demon cart was it was not a continuous monitored screen. So when you start it and water would flow through this garden hose and the Marines would hit this button and it would display what we thought was a continuous reading of the parts per million. It was a one-time instantaneous read.
Like at the beginning of it.
Or whenever. So if you hit it mid-cycle, it would just be like 8 parts per million. You're like, cool. As long as it's below 10, we're good.
Yeah.
What we found out was we were putting, and we noticed it a couple of days before we had a damn near mishap, there was all this white streak on the back of the jets. And my master and I were like, damn, I wonder if it's like, the water and the dust. So what happened was my buddy Slingblade throws the power in the corner to take off, and the motor. Yeah, he talked real slow.
Right. Talk like this.
This turbine, the blades liberate. And so he's spitting. The plane basically surges forward and then relaxes. And he goes to idle, rejects the takeoff. And,
wait.
And the engine's out of blades?
The turbine blades detached?
Yeah. Rolls-Royce likes to call it liberating.
So it stayed inside the case, but it didn't.
Spit all down the runway. So there's frag all down the runway.
But it didn't come out the sides of the airplane.
They did not come out sides. They got spit out the back.
So right out the hot nozzles.
Yeah, right out the 2 hot nozzles. So he rejects. His wingman actually rejects because he sees it happen. And we're like, well, that's odd. But combat, we got to go. So we send jets out an hour later. The next day was my birthday. I'll never forget because I kind of dished out of work to go just have like a couple minutes. I hadn't had a break in like months, right? So I'm like, hey, I'm going to take my birthday kind of half day, go take a nap, and maybe take a little sip of wine because my wife would send me wine because you can't really tell the difference. Anyway, so I get this phone. I have a cell phone, and I get this phone call. And they're like, hey, Warren, you need to get your ass back to the squadron right now. Rudy almost died. And I was like, holy shit. So I go back to the squadron because I was on the other side of the base. And he got airborne when the jet started chugging because the blades were liberating. Thank God he's a great American. He flips the jet basically over, lands opposite traffic on the single runway, and the motor is absolutely destroyed. Like it is apart. And so we're like, okay, well, this is a real problem. Like this is legitimately, now we have a problem. So we were grounded. I almost lost my job. And quite frankly, I probably should have been fired. Thank God for Chumley. So we were on a VTC with Doc Davis, and I'm trying to explain to him. And we bore scope, which is basically a camera, and
VTC.
We're looking at and this camera shows every blade, every engine out of our 12 jets is damaged. Every single motor.
Sounds like Spicer. Remember, the Navy puts salt water in their motors, in their tanks.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry. What's VTC?
Not VTC. It's like a bore scope. It's a camera.
No, you were on a video teleconference.
Oh yeah, sorry,
Thank
VTC.
you.
So on a video telegram, so what we call Zoom.
With Commanding General.
Second
Mall General.
Yeah.
And he basically was demanding my head on a platter. Right? He was like, "You fucked up. You're a terrible maintenance officer. This should have been caught." And he actually was right. He totally was right. And I looked at Chumley and I was like, "Sir, I have a plan. I can guarantee we can get 6 jets up in 7 days as long as you give me everything I asked for." And Chumley's looking at me. He's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" I was
How
like,
are you gonna do that?
I got this.
Send me 6 new jets, sir.
No. And he's like, "I am not sending you new jets." And I said, "Sir, I have 4 motors on hand. I got 2 on shipping in the Gulf." I was like, "I want all those motors here, as quickly as possible."
Were they on the MPS ships?
Yep.
Nice. Okay.
And we had 1 in Bahrain in storage. And I said, "Sir, as long as Mouse produces, I will get us back on the ATO in 7 days."
Your tasking
and
order.
He was like, "It will absolutely not happen, and you will be fired. You will get sent home." I was like, "Okay." Well, at this point, I had nothing to lose, right?
There you go.
But I bring the Marines in, and I told them, I said, "Here's the deal, boys. We've got Marines uncovered. We're working until the work is done. If that means you sleep in your office, we sleep in our office. We will." When the Cobra guys have to now search, so now they're crushing their souls. And so my Marines gave me 7 jets in 7 days because of the practice we had in the spring. They were
pods out.
able to swing a motor in 3 days.
Yeah, they were already spun up.
And
so can I make an assumption here, and correct me if I'm wrong? So you had those guys working 24/7.
Legally, I'm not going to answer that question, but the Marines worked until they retired, and then they.
But let me ask you this: where were you when that was going on?
I never left my office.
Okay, that's my.
I thought you were back in your room having a glass of wine. And
no,
absolutely.
If your Marines were there, I'm guessing you were there with them.
Absolutely.
So my grandfather was an Army sergeant, and I just remember him saying, "An officer never sleeps." So my Marines took care of me, and so the bet was, I said, "Hey, if I can get 8 jets, I'll shave my head." And so the Marines took it as a challenge. They gave me 8 jets. They get the 8th one. I still don't really think it was up, but they put it up on the schedule. And,
here's some paperwork, sir.
Somehow, between doing all this, they built a throne and found a red carpet. And when we met the objectives and we were back on the ATO, the air tasking order, so we're flying combat missions again, there was an entire ceremony, and I have pictures of it, where they paraded me in like beef. And they sat me down and they shaved my head. And because it sucks, what could I give my Marines? I can't give them money.
Yep.
Yeah.
I did go up to Chumley and say, "Sir, I need 3 NAMs and a comm." He was like, "Well, where's the paperwork?" I was like, I don't have time for paperwork." And so when my Marines would do something great, I would award a NAM or a COM on the spot.
Hey, tell our listeners what a NAM and a COM is.
A Navy Achievement Medal is it's an award for meritorious performance above and beyond what the expectation is.
Yeah, and you don't hand those out just every day.
No, usually it's like you got to write a whole certificate. You got to write at least like a page of like documentation. And then a Navy commendation is one step above that. And I basically was like, I'll never forget this. So it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. We've hit a snag on one jet. Like we can't get the cold nozzle off. The tool broke. Something broke. And we're doing this meeting and everyone's scratching their heads. And I just walk up and I said, Devils, I don't give a fuck what you have to do.
Where's the nozzle?
I was like, get that damn nozzle off the jet in the next hour. Because what we had set up, my master sergeant and I had set up an assembly line. And we were basically moving these jets down an assembly line because that's the only way we're going to get this work done. Yeah. I was like, Devil Dogs, I quite frankly, at this point, fuck it. We got to do. And I'll never forget, an hour and a half later, this Marine comes in with this bracket. And he's holding it like a dead raccoon. He's like, sir, I fucking did it. Don't ask, but it's done. And he does. So I'm on the maintenance floor in this hangar, and I had a NAM in my pocket, and I walked up and put a NAM right on his chest.
That's nice.
And what men will do for a stupid piece of tin and ribbon still shocks me to this day. But my Marines took care of me as a maintenance officer. I wasn't fired. Did learn a lot about water. But
you got a crash course on fucking water.
Right. Yeah. Oh, shit.
You can probably teach it right now, right?
Yeah. That's why I'm drinking right now.
Yeah. So I mentioned MPS. So it's Maritime Preposition Shipping. So there's stuff like positioned all over the world on ships that's ready to come to you. How did you get any of those? You had four engines there. Where did you get the other motors?
There's 4 engines on hand.
Right.
That would just happened to be the way we kind of stocked.
Yeah.
There was one in Bahrain. There was 1 or 2 on the ships, and then the rest were basically not quite overnighted, but they threw them on the back of a KC-130, and we got them right when I needed them, like right when I was like, we are ready to drop motors.
Wow.
So
here's one now.
The system worked. The system worked as advertised.
That's fantastic.
But there was right guys in the like Mookie Blaylock was the class desk. So he was in charge of all this at NavAir, and I knew him from the RAG. He was my on-wing, and I literally called him one day crying. Like I was like, dude, we can't do this without support. And so I had, other than the water fucking me, the right people at the right time.
That's awesome. That is just incredible that you were able to get that and put that back together.
So we did.
You know, the thing is, you talk about them doing it for the medal, but I think you also made it clear to them that there are other Marines suffering, waiting for those jets to come back. And what's the whole thing about being a Marine, right? It's you're not scared of dying; you're scared of letting your buddy down.
Throw down.
So
yeah, totally. Yeah, and just motivate Marines, and it was ended up being a great deployment. We flew over 6,000 hours total. We expended a ton of ordnance. We got right back on the flight schedule. We did a bunch of killing. And it was a great moment for the Marines.
That's awesome, dude. I love that story. I know.
That's a long prelude to there I was.
The check flight.
Okay.
Let me finish. So after you swing an engine, after the high power, it's still not up. You have to have an idiot like me and senior guys take it out in what's called a functional check flight.
Yeah.
Right? PMCF. We just called it an FCF, but
PMCF stands for what? That's an acronym.
Post Maintenance Functional Check Flight. It was just a lot of letters. I just dropped the PM. So my job as a maintenance officer was primarily to do those, right? Because my job was to accept my Marines' work, check it out airborne, and there was like I think it was like 32 pages of checklists, right? Like there was just a lot of boxes you had to check.
Repeat. You were a PMCF guy too, right? Yep.
So and I took great pride in this because I knew when I signed this jet, I would hand it to Fig and go, this jet is combat ready. It's safe. It will not let you down. So I did a lot of functional check flights between Yuma on swinging the engines and Afghanistan. So we're back. We're back home. It's like March of 2012. I have my orders to go to Army Command and Staff in Fort Leavenworth. My tour's ramping down. I'm just about to hand over the maintenance department to my bro, Kramer. And so I get a call the night before, and they're like, hey, sir, aircraft 1's ready for FCF. I was like, okay, whatever, dude. Like it's only like 300 FTF in a year, right?
Yeah, it's just another day walking the park, Kazan.
Yeah. So, and at that point, and I'll tell you, and I tell this story a lot of times at the company because it was complacency. So I show up, I don't look at the card, I don't really pay attention in the brief because, bro, I've done this stuff. So I take off out of Yuma, beautiful day, Yuma day, March, good performance.
Not a cloud in the sky, right? Not a cloud in the sky, everything's great. Not a cloud in the sky. I've got the whole R-2301 West, which is basically the southern portion of Arizona from California, almost all the way to Tucson. I got this gigantic piece of airspace, right? And so I'm like, whatever, bro. So I take off. I climb up to 40,000 feet. So that's your first check. So you do a bunch of checks on the ground, and then you take off, climb up to 40,000 feet. And really, at the end of the day, what you do is you put the power in the corner, and you do these big turns to see if the engine will cough, right? You're muted, Fig.
Yeah. What are you asking? Fig, no, you're actually on mute, Fig. But there he is. He's back. Yeah,
I got you now. So 40,000 feet. I do my checks. What I don't notice, because I'm a little sloppy, I'll be quite frank, in the debrief, is I'm sloppy. And so I don't have my fuel quantity switch in wings. I have it in total, right? Or internal.
Okay.
Something that was like not important, right? I should have been watching it drain the wings evenly. I missed it. And so what was happening was the fuel proportioner is not drawing the fuel evenly out of the wings. So, I do my thing, whatever. Flop over on my back. I dive real fast down to 25,000 feet, which is probably the more exciting part of the A card, which is the total card.
The full thing. Yep.
I used to call it the full meal deal, right? So get to 25,000 feet. That's where we basically are checking if the Marines put the wing on straight, right? Because the wing is one piece, right? And it's held on by 4 bolts, really big bolts. And so you'd go at about 300 knots, roll, pull 4 Gs for about 10, 15 seconds. And then you would basically take the stick from one side and slowly move it to the other side, right? And the jet should do basically a really nice, smooth roll, coordinated roll back to the way you've commanded it to do. The Harrier does not have a flight control computer system. We have a stability system, which was like the equivalent of like a McDonald's Happy Meal.
It's not fly-by-wire.
It's real stick and rudder.
Real stick and rudder. It's not fly-by-wire.
Yeah, so, and that's the great thing about the Harrier is that it is probably one of the last blue-collar jets out there, right? Like, you do something, the jet's like, okay, let's party, bro.
Yeah. There's no voting in that jet.
Yeah.
There's commanding.
And so you have to fly pretty nice airplane, right? So and it's not uncommon for the airplane to kind of go out of control softly if it's not trimmed up right. So the first time I do it into the light wing. So when I roll, I actually rolled into the heavy wing, but it did a little snap roll, and I was like, okay, whatever, It, again, didn't dawn on me to look at the freaking fuel. And so I come back 25,000 feet, trim the airplane up, shake it out. And so this time I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to the right this time. Because last time I went to the left. Let me check the right. So now I'm turning the first turn into the heavy wing, which does not have an ounce of fuel out of it yet. It's got like 3,000 pounds of fuel in it. Okay. Yeah. The left wing is totally empty. Okay. So I go to the right, I pull it, and then I reverse. And the plane initially follows what I asked it to do, and then it rotates. And when I say rotates, it's basically like a snap roll.
Boom. And
I was like, whoa. And then it did it again, this time more violent. And I was like, what the hell? So I went to idle, which is part of our out of control flight, right?
Yeah.
Identified that
idle
pretty
neutral.
Quick. Yep, idle neutral. And so when I slapped it back, what I did it so fast during a high G maneuver, I actually created a sub-idle compressor stall. So now the motor's not working, but I don't know that yet. That comes towards the end.
This is a detail that comes up later.
Yeah.
This is foreshadowing.
Yeah.
So now I'm in a radar bird, which has a really heavy nose. So then it snaps again. And this time it's so hard, it slaps my head up against the canopy. Like I was like, holy, what is happening? And then it goes into what we call falling leaf, which is essentially a flat spin, but we're going nose over ass. basically falling out of the sky. And the first time it did it, it was so violent. I always kept a Snickers bar in my little purse. So I see my Snickers bar like pass me. I'm like, I'm still like, what the fuck is happening right now? And it's obviously this is happening. This is like super fast.
The Snicker bar is floating through space in front of your face because it came out of your nav bag, right?
Yeah, my nav bag. And I'll never forget this thing. I'm like, what the fuck? And as the plane goes, wham, and it flips nose over tail. And it was so violent. I hit my head on the upfront control and scratched my visor.
Oh, wow.
And so now on the next iteration, I'm like going into the next OCF, which is basically take the stick and stuff it. And I stuffed the stick just as I hit about 80 degrees nose up, and I caught it. And then the plane basically flops over. So I'm at about 18,000 feet now. And I'm like, okay, I got this.
Life's good.
Hold on a second.
Except for one thing.
Well, hold on a second. So you got it. You kept it from flipping over backwards again. Now you're pointing straight down, right? Like a line dart.
Straight down, like 60, 70, 80 degrees.
Okay.
I don't know because everything's off because the motor's not running.
Yeah, you don't know this yet, but you're just about to figure this out.
Yeah, and this story is taking forever.
No, it's not. It's all good.
We're talking bang, bang, bang. But I can't breathe. My first thing is like, my mask is
on my face. Your O-Box is tits up.
O-Box system, oxygen generating system, which is powered by the freaking motor.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find the green apple.
You probably can't get your Zeus fitting off.
Yeah, the little green apple. Remember that repeat? The little green ring?
Yeah, the apple, your emergency oxygen, yeah.
But I can't find it because my leg is on it because it's a stupid-ass design. So I take my mask and I rip my mask off. So now I take a breath. I'm like, okay, what is going on?
At 18,000
and then it dawns on the Bachelor of Undergraduate Studies. Both screens are off. It's incredibly quiet in the cockpit, which I had never heard before other than sitting in the jet when the motor not on.
Right, yeah.
And I look at the little analog gauge for the RPM, which is like hidden on the engine panel, and it says 0.0. I was like,
well, your tach is broken.
I was like, okay, so now I know what the problem is. So then I go through my engine relight procedures, and I'm 40. So I pull the nose up a little bit so I can get to 300 knots. So I'm probably 30 degrees nose down at about 15,000 feet, headed right into these mountains. Not big, they're Arizona mountains, so not like Colorado mountains, but they're big rock thingies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so
big enough to ruin your day.
Hit the button. I'm waiting for. I can hear the igniter sparking. I can hear
click, click.
In your headset. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, and it doesn't work. It's not relit yet. So I was like, fuck it. I'm going to do a manual relight. So then I go manual fuel. So I bypass the computers, right? And then I'm holding it, still not relighting. And now I'm passing through 10,000 feet and essentially like a death glide. And I was like, my first car was a 66 Mustang. And to get that piece of shit to start, I'd have to pump the pedal a couple times to squirt some fuel in the car. Yeah. So I was like, fuck it. So I just started pumping the throttle. And then at about 6,000 feet, I heard whoosh. Oh shit! That's thrust. So I set the power.
Afterburner.
Yeah.
I set the power real gently, and I point my nose to about northwest. I was like, okay, I gotta get out of here. Like, okay, all's good in the world.
Hope nobody saw that.
Hold on.
Let me back up. So as I'm waiting for this, my mask is hanging off, and I'm like, it dawns on me, I may have to eject.
Right?
Like there was a moment I was like, fuck, I'm not going to have to eject. So I got to put my mask back on. So I put it on just enough so I can breathe. I get it relit. I turn to the northwest. I start climbing, and I was in Air Force airspace at this point, and I call Snake Eye. I'm like, hey, Snake Eye, Nightmare 01, emergency aircraft. I just had an engine issue. I got it relit. I'm headed 300, climbing 17.5, straight to Yuma. And the guy goes, hey, yeah, copy that, Nightmare. Good luck, little buddy. What the fuck?
Good luck, little buddy.
So then I'm going
Thanks,
through
Sarge.
the 01 West. I'm cutting through this airspace. Now Mott's has it, and there's like 40 airplanes in this airspace getting ready to do a big like exercise.
Mott's exercise,
like,
yeah.
Get out of my way, So I end up landing. Plane worked fine. Landed, taxied in, shut down. I jump out of the jet. And after that, I was like, okay, everything's good. Flight's fine. Airplane's working good. I just set 85%. I did a variable nozzle, greased the landing like usual. I get out of the jet.
Usual.
And my gunny, what's his name? I forget. We went to Albuquerque together. He's like, sir, what the? Oh, and then of course, base is like trying to get him. I was like, everyone just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, because you declared an emergency. Everybody and their brother showing up at the.
Yeah. Now they got questions.
I turned the radios down. I was like, I can't deal with this. So I land, and he's like, sir, you okay? And I was like, I need a cigarette. And my adrenaline was so high. I'm like, couldn't get a cigarette to my mouth. I like walk right through maintenance control. I grab a cigarette. I'm like outside, like smoking. And one of my Marines, and he just retired, and he told this story as Ryan. He's like, sir, that was the most pilot moment I've ever seen in my Marine Corps career. He was like, you were like, everyone shut the fuck up for 20 minutes. I don't want to hear a word. Right? I come in, I do my paperwork, and Mr. Peak, who was our Rolls-Royce rep, great American, had been with the program like 40 years, longer than I've been alive. He walks in, he pulls the data and goes, hey, Warren, you good? So I'm sitting down, I have some booze, whiskey in my desk. I'm drinking a glass of whiskey. I'm kind of coming off
the adrenaline.
Yeah, so I'm kind of like, now I'm like, man, my shoulder hurts. Like, why does my head hurt so bad? Like, why is everything so sore? Because I've gotten whipped around.
Yeah, you got beat the hell up in that cockpit, bro.
Yeah. And he's like, Warren, I've been in this program a long time. I have never seen such a violent departure in a Harrier and the guy walk away from it. And I was like, well, that's cool. Of course, I go home, have a couple more beers, don't tell this story to my wife because she will just freak out. The next day, I come in, and they're pulling the engine out of the jet. And I was like, oh, no, the engine worked fine. They pull it out, and the A-stage the blow-off valves had blown out. That's why the engine wouldn't start.
Whoa. Yeah.
And he's like, Jerry's like, hey, Warren, how did you get this motor to start? I'm like, well, I did this, and then I just started pumping gas into it because it was basically on my last course of action. Yeah. And he was like, the engineers do not understand how that motor started.
You shouldn't have started.
Should never start.
Should never started.
Wow.
You should have jumped. That airplane should have been in 1,000 pieces, 1,000,000 pieces.
Yes, I should have been in a chute, calling for
silk recovery.
Wow.
Yeah. So funny. So to close this story out, because I really am just this dumb. So that day, the CO's like, Warren, you're done flying for a couple of days. Like, you need a break. I'm like, nah, I don't need a break. It's just an emergency, whatever. He goes, okay, well, I'll solve this problem. Put your shit in my office. So I put all my flying gear in his office. That night, my buddy calls me up from 211. He's like, and he doesn't, I don't think he knows what happened. Everyone heard about it, but no one knew it was me. Right. He goes, hey man, I got an A card tomorrow morning. I'm sick as a dog. I can't. He's like, but I have to have this jet to make the flight schedule. I was like, sure, dude. What time? He's like, be at the squadron at 6 a.m. So I show up at 6 a.m. I go get my stuff out of the skipper's office. He said I couldn't fly. And that's why. He didn't say the other.
Shit.
So and he was on the night page. So I knew he wasn't going to be until like noon or 11.
Nicely played.
Oh, boy.
So I grab my shit. I walk over there. And I don't remember doing this, but this young captain who later, when I was the XO 214, worked for me. He's like, all right, so we do this brief at the desk, weather, NOTAMs, basically the out brief. And I have my stuff all undone. I'm drinking coffee, super salty major. And he was like, hey, CO wanted me to make sure that, you knew about yesterday's thing, about the engine issue, just be real careful. And apparently I take a sip of my coffee. I throw it in the trash, and I was like, fuck you, dude. That was me. And I walk out. I do this card. But I will not lie now. I would never admit this when I was in active duty. I was terrified of that flight. Like, I literally was like, what was that noise? What was that noise?
Right.
What is the plane doing?
Right.
So I come back, I do the card. Now I'm running down the ramp in my gear. Because I'm like, shit, it's 10:30. I got to beat the skipper. And I walk in his office. Sure as shit, he's sitting there.
Oh, how'd that go?
He was like, hey, man, I told you were done flying for a couple of days. I was like, well, you didn't say for other squadrons.
Shit.
And he just looked at me, shook his head. And he was like, just get the fuck out of my office.
God.
I threw my stuff in the locker, and here I am.
Who was that? Was that Cutter?
No, that was Dirty Smith.
Okay.
Wow.
Nice. Oh, man.
How about that?
Cutter was my neighbor on base. He was the skipper of the base.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's one of my stories when the jet tried to kill me.
Yeah.
That's
Well, it did.
It tried to kill a couple people over the
Yeah,
years.
you beat it.
Nicely done.
God bless you. Well done, sir.
That goes back to it's better to be lucky than good, which reminded me, we were telling that story. You get to the point in the card where you do a shutdown and a relight.
We took that out. Nope, that had been removed a long time ago.
Had it? Okay, because they were up at a T-bird. It wasn't me. It was an international, it was an Italian pilot, call sign Doogie, because he looked like Neil Patrick Harris. And he was flying with Rex Capro, Reckless. Yeah, Stefano. He flies for it isn't Alitalia anymore. I forget what ITA. Yeah. But Stefano looked like Doogie Howser, so that was his call sign. Was Doogie.
He's from Albuquerque, by the way. Doogie Howser went to a rival high school.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Fun fact.
little known fact. Trivia. See how smart you can get listening to this show, folks?
Yeah.
So anyway, Reckless and Doogie are up in a T-bird, and they get to the point where it's time to shut down an engine, and Reckless says, yeah, we're going to shut down the engine. And Doogie's like, you do know there's only one engine here, right? You're not really going to shut this down, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Used to shut it off and relight it, which I'm glad they got rid of it, because that is about the stupid. That's just a bad idea.
That's just dumb. Why? I don't even. Yeah. So when I was an FCF guy, that was already way gone out of
which is smart. Yeah. Well,
that is smart. So, well, crap, Fig. We've been going at this a long time, about an hour and 40. I think
2 hours,
almost
and 2 minutes of going live.
Well, we're an hour and 50 since we started the show, so I think it's time we land this airplane before the engine flames out due to lack of fuel.
I got a little gas left in the tank, but my stories tend to go a little.
That's all right. So if you got a little gas left, we can call that the extra. How's that?
That was outstanding stuff there. So we need to we need to start doing that. There we go. There we go. So first thing we need to do is thank you for coming tonight on board with us. I'm trying to send notes to Fig in the background.
You're killing me, dude. You're killing me.
Yeah. There you go. Got notes to Fig in the background. But thank you for coming on the show with us. We are deeply grateful. And man, what a fun couple of hours this has been.
It seems like it was like 25 minutes,
right?
Because you're a great storyteller and you have a lot of great stories. Thank you.
And thank you for your service, and thanks to your bride and your family for the sacrifices they made and all the time that they got to spend away from you, say on your birthday and their birthdays and anniversaries and everything else, because that's hard, and the families make the sacrifices, as do the active duty and the veterans. So thank you.
It's a pleasure being here. It's just great hanging with some Marines and talking about my Marines, and
it's pretty damn awesome, dude.
A little emotional, I'll be quite frank.
Yeah, it's awesome. And, here's the thing, too. When we're all done, you're going to think of 9 things that you wish you would have told us.
Oh, yeah, crap.
So
like how you got the barrel behind you.
Yeah.
Gun,
So you know what?
That one I'm not answering.
That's okay. So the thing is, though, you're going to think of 9 stories like, oh, I should have told them that. So you know what that means? You have to come back and tell the story.
I would be very honored to come back.
The only thing I'm going to ask you to do is jot down bullets so it'll jog your memory, because I'm telling you, it happens to everybody. As soon as we...
my son told me I need to probably write it. My grandfather was D-Day, Omaha Beach. He actually wrote a book. He never published it, but it was basically his thoughts.
Do you have your hands on it? Can you get your hands on it?
Yeah, I have it right here.
Oh, we need to get that up on the website. This is the kind of reason that we started the show, was so that these stories would not be lost to time.
Yeah, people's stories need to be told, dude.
Yeah, I would love to come read some of those. He second wave D-Day, he saw some stuff.
Oh, we'll make that happen. We will absolutely make that happen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get a couple other thank yous out of the way and land this airplane, Fig.
All right. Let's see. Well, who's that? How about my man Dave Hamilton? And let's be honest, Dave Hamilton. If it wasn't for Dave, we'd still be trying to figure out how to do this. So
how to turn our computers on.
Yeah,
so Dave and Sadie also over there, who does our social. She's putting up shorts on YouTube several times a week now. It's increasing our visibility out there. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and yeah. So yeah, thank you, Dave and Sadie. And then can't say anything. Can't say enough about guys working in the background for us right now. Sticks is back there. I don't know what the hell he really does. It's magic. He's magic.
Putting up pictures before we say it.
I know.
You didn't put the pictures that I sent. All the pictures of me. I thought it was going to be a me thing.
Well,
I know.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we need to get those, and we missed those because that's the whole pilot thing.
You're like, what about who the hell is that?
Oh, look at that good-looking kid.
Yeah.
That's my boy Sling Blade, and that was my last flight on my second tour. That's a story that I will tell later.
Okay.
Because I took a broken jet that I should not have taken.
All right,
okay,
let's
that's probably a good extra then. That's a tease for our extra.
There you go.
All right.
There you go.
So, all right. And as the joke goes on, the pilot on a date going, well, enough about me. Let's have you talk. What do you think about me?
Well, enough about me. Let's talk about flying.
Yeah, that too.
Hey, can I just say one last thing? To all my Marines that I didn't say their names or forgot, I'm sorry. I love you guys. So you guys took care of me when I needed it.
You know what?
Yeah.
And they know that. I promise you. And we need to say thank you right now to Brad Silcott, also known as AKA Badass. For
great photos.
He threw up a couple pictures in the middle of the thing. Actually, I think Sticks threw them up, but they were Badass's pictures. So thank you, Badass, for all that. And
all your support,
And then we got to say thanks to Robbie Walling and
Robbie Walling and HSI Wealth Strategies. Look, let Robbie help you figure out where you're going with your retirement. Get yourself back on track. Get yourself on glide slope. And one thing that's not a sponsor, we're going to sponsor ourselves ever so briefly here. And if you're trying to tune out because we're closing the show, I want you to tune back in for just a second here. And I want you to think about winning some free, cool stuff. All right. We're giving away flasks, custom flasks with
badass.
your name or call sign engraved on them. So go to sothereiwas.us/giveaway. And there's things you can do. You can give us a rating. You can tell another friend about the show. The more you do, the more points you earn. At the end of the 15 days, it's going to end on March 31st. 5 top people with points will get a flask sent to them with their name or call sign engraved on it and the show's logo. So,
do you have one handy?
Pilots love free shit, so go do it.
Yeah. There's one.
I don't have one handy. Do you have yours handy?
No, because you didn't give me a heads up.
Well, no, there's that. I'll tell you what. I'll grab one and pull it up. For people to see here as you talk about. Thanks to the folks who lost their minds and throw money at us.
Yeah,
so you do that, and I'll go get a picture of it.
Okay.
I think you guys are doing a great service for guys like me,
dude. So. Listen, it's our pleasure, and it never gets old. And so we want to thank right now all the Patreons that throw money at our show, and we honestly think you've lost your freaking minds, but we are humbled and appreciate that you do that because believe it or not, to produce this show it actually costs money actually, and I didn't know that the first year we did it. Repeat was funding the whole damn thing, and then eventually he told me, hey, if this keeps going, we might actually break even in 2 years. I'm like, what are you talking about? Anyway, it does take money. And so
that's a good looking flash.
Yeah, right.
Sticks has one there.
Hey, look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I knew chopper dudes were useful.
Yeah. For something, right?
Okay.
So, and here's the one that you'll get we've got red and blue, red for the Marines, blue for the Navy, pink for the Air Force.
Back it up a little bit. And it's wrapped. That's leather, right? It's leather wrapped.
That one's a powder coat, and here's the leather one with my call sign on it.
Yeah, nice.
You'll get your call sign on it with show logo, and
laser etched into the leather. Yeah, it's pretty badass.
Yeah.
Not that we are advocating that you are.
No, you put water in here in case you get thirsty.
Yeah, you can keep water in it. Stay hydrated.
Or Fireball.
Yeah, whatever. Right. Anyway, thank you to the Patreons for all your support, and we are going to have a great extra for you after this. And hey, by the way, give us a rating. Give us a 5-star rating. If you can't give us a 5-star rating, tell us why, how we can make it 5. And where do you do that? So there I was /rate.
.us/rate.
Thank you. So there was .us/rate.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say.
Pull over on the side of the road and do that. And then while you're there, pull on the side of the road, go to therewas.us/merch and order yourself one of them fine bikinis. Bikini season's coming.
I could wear that.
Warren, you could rock that bikini, bro. You could rock that. And if you couldn't, I bet your bride could.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Right look at that good-looking dude right there.
Is that you? Oh, jeez. Yeah, you could rock that while you're surfing, bro.
While you're surfing. Right? Bikini and surfing.
Yeah, my wife won't let me because, the problem is all the ladies get too much attention.
I know. You got to beat them away with a stick and the whole thing. Yeah. I get it.
Oh, man. And we did talk some acronyms today. We have so there was.us/glossary. We haven't mentioned that in a long time, but that's got a lot of it. If there's something you did hear that you don't understand, shoot us an email at repeat@sotherawas.us, fig@sotherawas.us. If you want a real answer, go to sticks@sotherawas.us, and we'll try and get back to you, but we'll get something up on the glossary.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's actually cool.
Uh-oh.
I like this Dizzy guy.
Putting $1 in my
Dizzy's
bikini.
got an eye. He's refusing to put $1 in Fig's bikini, and I
don't blame him, bro. There's a good picture.
My Marines. My Orties.
Hey, listen, that's the music of our favorite F-16 pilots that make the Air Force sound good, the Dos Gringos.
It is.
They got 4 albums. That's really loud, too, bro. Really loud.
Well, I can fix that. Just speak up.
I'm just saying, bro, it's a great music. And by the way, 4 albums, there's not a bad song on any of them. And if you're having a bad day, just listen to some of their music. It'll make you laugh.
That will lighten your mood. No doubt about it. Oh, holy smokes.
What do you say?
I don't know. Until next week, I guess, folks. Thank you so much, Warren, for spending time with us.
You're the man, Warren.
Thank you, guys.
Cool
And it was Gunny B.
This
Love
is
you, Gunny B.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Look at
that. Be a Brexit.
Fantastic. So until next week, everybody, stay safe. Check 6.
You recognize that, River? That's the news.
Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day.
It's salt to sea right there, bro.
Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. 'Cause when you're going down in the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
It's what?
He said it's over. Shit.
Mistakes were made. I blame society.
And we are